Every night, as the last echo of laughter faded from the campus quads and the dormitory lights dimmed one by one, a man named Eli Patterson unlocked the side entrance of the Whitmore University Library. It was always the same routine. At precisely 10:45 p.m., he arrived in a faded navy blue jacket with elbow patches, khaki trousers worn thin at the knees, and a battered thermos of black coffee tucked under one arm. His ID badge, clipped crookedly to his collar, read, Eli Patterson, Night Security. Most students didn't know his name. Some didn't even realize the library stayed open until 2 a.m. But for those who did, the insomniacs, the last-minute crammers, the anxious thesis writers, he was a fixture. A quiet shape moving through the marble corridors, nodding at lone readers, occasionally adjusting the thermostat or rescuing a jammed printer. He rarely spoke, but he noticed everything. He noticed when Julian, the computer science major, began sitting in the same seat every night, but with less and less enthusiasm. He noticed when Maya, the lit major with the green headphones, stopped humming to herself and started biting her nails until they bled. He noticed when a first-year girl cried in the philosophy aisle and pretended to have just something in her eye. Eli never interrupted, but the next night, in that same philosophy aisle, a small yellow post-it note appeared on the bookshelf. You are not alone in this chapter. Keep reading. The ending may surprise you. No name, no signature, just like the ones that began appearing throughout the library in the weeks that followed. A note in the bathroom mirror. You are doing better than you think. A note inside a chemistry textbook. Even molecules bond better under pressure. A note on a discarded takeout bag. Don't forget to eat. You matter. At first, the notes seemed like harmless graffiti. A mystery. A curiosity. But then students began saving them, photographing them, whispering about the midnight philosopher. No one suspected Eli, because no one thinks the janitor or the security guard is anything more than a background hum. But Eli Patterson had once been more than background. He had once stood before a classroom of 30 young adults and breathed poetry into their weary souls. He had once been Professor Patterson of comparative literature, praised for his lectures on grief and beauty and silence, until his son, a Marine, was killed in action. That was when Eli stopped lecturing, stopped speaking much at all, and quietly took a job watching over books he used to teach. He didn't write the notes to be found. He wrote them because he needed to believe them, too. But the night everything changed, Eli noticed a boy in the corner, slumped, motionless, surrounded by open books and closed windows. His name was Daniel. Eli had seen him before. A sophomore, maybe. quiet, always polite, always alone. What Eli didn't know was that Daniel had come to the library that night not to study, but to say goodbye. He had a plan. He had written the letters, but when he reached into his backpack to retrieve them, a small note fluttered to the ground. In the days after Daniel's quiet turning point, something began to shift in the air of the library. Students who had once buried their faces in textbooks started lifting their heads, noticing things, each other, the notes, the sense of something bigger humming beneath the silence. The whispers about the midnight philosopher grew louder, and soon a student-run blog posted a photo collage titled Library Wisdom. It featured dozens of sticky notes found across campus, each captioned with the date and location it was discovered. The post went viral within the university, and still Eli said nothing. He continued his quiet rituals, thermos in hand, rounds through the poetry stacks, occasional late-night printer rescues. But something inside him was loosening, like old paint peeling back to reveal the color underneath. One evening, he found a note waiting for him. It was tucked beneath the staff sign-in clipboard, written in careful, slanted print. To whoever is writing the notes, thank you. You kept me going, M. Eli read it twice, then folded it and slid it gently into his jacket pocket. Later that night, he unlocked the storage room behind the library's west wing, a space filled with old periodicals and furniture no one had used in years. In the farthest corner, tucked behind a rolling cart of forgotten encyclopedias, he set up a small table and a wooden box. He labeled it Shelf of Stories. Then, on the table, he left a stack of blank index cards and a pen. A sign taped above simply read, "Have something to say? Leave it here. Someone is listening." He didn't expect much, but the next night, 3 cards were waiting. I miss my brother. I haven't told anyone. I don't think I'm smart enough to be here. I'm scared to go home for break. No names. Just truths. Eli read each one, his fingers trembling slightly as he held the stories of strangers. He didn't take the cards with him. Instead, he left his own response beside them the next night. Missing someone is a sign of deep love. That love doesn't end. It changes form. You are enough. You've made it this far. That counts. You deserve to feel safe. Even if it's not now, hold on. Safer days are coming. And the next morning, 6 more cards appeared. By the end of the week, there were 32. The Shelf of Stories became a hidden sanctuary. Word spread in hushed tones and shared text messages. Some nights, Eli found poetry. Other nights, he found confessions of heartbreak, guilt, dreams. He responded when he could. Other times, he simply left a quote or a short line of encouragement. But always, always, he read every single word. One night, as he refilled the blank cards, he heard footsteps. A girl, Junior by the look of her, stood in the doorway. "Are you the one who writes them?" Eli didn't answer right away. He looked down at the pen in his hand, then nodded. She stepped closer. "I just wanted to say I was going to drop out last semester. The only thing that made me come back was a note I found inside my chemistry book. I still carry it." Eli met her eyes, gentle and full of knowing. "Thank you," she whispered. He nodded again. A small smile tugged at the edge of his lips. When she left, he sat at the little table, and for the first time in years, he picked up a fresh card and began to write his own story. "My name is Eli. I used to teach here. I lost someone. I didn't know how to live with that pain, so I stopped living altogether. But then one night, I wrote a note, and someone read it. That's when I remembered. Stories don't die if they're shared." He placed it at the back of the box. He didn't sign it. He didn't need to. The shelf would hold it, and the words, like the students he watched over, would find their way home. He hadn't put it there. It simply read, "The page isn't done yet. Don't put down the pen." Daniel stared at it. Shaking, he looked up. And for the first time, he noticed the old man behind the circulation desk, not watching, just there. Still, the boy picked up his backpack and stayed. That was the night the notes stopped being a mystery. That was the night they became a lifeline. And Eli, he just kept walking the halls, checking the locks, leaving words like breadcrumbs, hoping someone would follow them back to themselves. By the time midterms rolled around, the shelf of stories had grown from a hidden whisper to a quiet movement. Students brought friends to the West Wing with reverence, as if showing them a secret chapel. Some came to read. Some came to write. A few just sat beside the shelf in silence, as if the air around it somehow knew how to listen better than people did. But what none of them realized, what even Eli hadn't fully grasped, was how far the shelf's impact would reach. One Thursday evening, a professor of psychology named Dr. Hallstrom came into the library after hours, searching for a misplaced thesis file. As he passed the West Wing, he noticed the soft glow of string lights. Someone had hung a small row above the shelf of stories. Curious, he walked over. He read. Every card, every reply. He didn't speak of it the next day, but by Monday, an anonymous article appeared in the university bulletin titled, "The soul of our campus lives on a quiet shelf." It was tender, beautifully written, and entirely anonymous. But it quoted lines only someone with access to the shelf of stories could have written. That morning, Eli found over 50 new cards waiting, some joyful, some heart-wrenching, some asking outright, "Who are you?" and one that simply read, "Thank you for giving us a place to speak when the world stopped listening." One evening, Dean Miriam Lowry visited the library. Eli recognized her instantly. The same woman who had once handed him the folded letter of resignation he wrote after his son died. She had barely aged. Same sharp eyes. Same red scarf. She was standing quietly in front of the shelf. Eli approached, not quite sure what to say. She turned slowly. "I always knew you'd come back, Eli," she said gently. He looked down at the floor. "I didn't come back to teach." "No," she nodded. "But you're teaching again, just the same." They stood in silence for a long time, watching as a nervous-looking freshman slipped a folded paper into the box, glancing over her shoulder like she was confessing a secret to the moon. Dean Lowry turned to him again. "You changed this place without ever raising your voice." Eli gave a quiet shrug. "It wasn't me. It was them. They just needed a space." She smiled. Sometimes the truest teachers are the ones who don't stand at the front of a classroom. That night, Eli walked his rounds slower than usual. He didn't write a note. He didn't need to. The walls were now covered with words. Not his, but theirs. And they were still writing, still believing, still staying, even when it hurt. The following week, something unexpected happened. It began with a flyer, plain white, taped beside the elevator, and cork boards across campus. No flashy colors, no logos, just a single line in bold print. "Have you ever found a note that changed you?" And beneath it, a time and place. Friday, 6 p.m., West Wing Reading Hall. No sponsor, no RSVP. Just curiosity. At first, Eli thought little of it. Students posted strange things all the time. But that Friday evening, as he polished the brass handles of the main doors, he noticed a strange hush creeping through the air. Not empty, but expectant. At 5:57 p.m., he wandered toward the West Wing, and then he stopped cold. The hallway was full. Rows and rows of students, faculty, staff, sitting on bean bags and folding chairs, pressed against bookshelves, leaning against windows, all eyes facing the corner where the shelf of stories stood, draped in a soft cloth of ivy, now lit with fairy lights and flanked by posters of handwritten notes enlarged for display. And in the center, a microphone. A student stood there. Daniel. Taller now, more sure. He cleared his throat. "I don't know who he is. I don't even know if he's here. But I want to tell you about the night I nearly left this campus for good." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Daniel continued, voice steady. "I found a note stuck inside leaves of grass. It said, 'You're still here. That means something. Hold on.' That line saved me. I never got to say thank you. He stepped back, and a girl came forward. I found mine during finals, she said, holding up a worn piece of paper. I was hiding in the bathroom, crying. It was tucked into the crack of the mirror. It said, "You are not your grades." That line? It kept me from believing the worst about myself. Then another and another, dozens, one by one, they came forward, some trembling, some with tears, some laughing at the absurdity of crying over sticky notes. But every story was real, raw, brave. And Eli, he stood hidden behind a row of tall encyclopedias, hands clenched against his chest, jaw trembling. He wanted to walk away, but his legs refused because for the first time in years, he felt something shifting inside. Someone stood up at the mic and said, "If you're out there, the person who did this, thank you. You gave us more than comfort. You gave us each other." Then they turned and looked straight into the shadows where Eli stood. "Please, let us say your name." Silence, and then movement. Eli stepped out from behind the shelves, his shoes quiet on the hardwood floor. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Gasps rose. Then silence. Then a single clap. And then the entire room stood, erupting into applause, not loud and rowdy, but slow, reverent, full of awe. Tears slipped down his cheeks as he approached the microphone. He cleared his throat, voice hoarse. "My name is Eli Patterson." A pause. "I didn't mean to become anything more than a man trying to remember how to live again. But you helped me too." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a single note. The first he ever wrote. I guess. I thought maybe if someone out there could hold on a little longer, then maybe I could too. He looked around the room, and for the first time since his son's funeral, Eli smiled without pain behind it. "You've all written the real story. I just left the pen." The days after the gathering blurred into a golden haze. Students started leaving note, not just at the shelf of stories, but across campus. Folded slips tucked inside library books, taped under cafeteria tables, pinned to dorm corkboards. A soft revolution was underway, built not on protest or politics, but on quiet connection. They called it the Second Voice Movement. It wasn't organized. It wasn't branded. But it spread like warmth on a cold day. And Eli didn't return to hiding. Instead, he started writing openly. Not just anonymous notes, but actual essays, letters, stories, published first in the student zine, then picked up by local newspapers. His voice, once buried beneath grief, now guided others through theirs. One spring afternoon, Dean Lowry summoned him to her office. "I want to offer you something," she said, sliding a folder across the desk. "A faculty position. Not tenure track, not yet. but a new course, the literature of listening. Eli blinked. A course? She smiled. Built around what you've done? Empathy, story sharing, the quiet power of words. He looked down at the folder, then up again, eyes glassy. Do I even belong in front of a classroom anymore? Dean Lowry leaned in. You never left, Eli. You just changed the room. By summer, the shelf of stories had been formally installed in the library's architecture, a real wooden nook now, with benches and warm lamps, and a brass plaque above in honor of Eli Patterson, who reminded us that every voice matters. That fall, on the first day of class, Eli entered a modest room on the second floor of the Humanities building. 17 students sat waiting, some fresh-faced, some with journals in hand, some already blinking back tears before he even spoke. He smiled. No slideshow, no dramatic syllabus, just a stack of index cards on every desk. He said, "Before we learn how to analyze words, let's start by speaking truth." He held up a card. Write something no one knows about you. I won't ask your name. I only ask you to be brave. The room was still. Pens began to move, and in that moment, Eli knew. He wasn't a custodian of books anymore. He was a guardian of stories, of soft awakenings, of quiet hours that changed lives. Epilogue. Years later, long after Eli retired, a new student walked into the library. She was nervous, alone, carrying the weight of homesickness and doubt. Wandering aimlessly, she stumbled upon a small nook in the west wing. A box, a light, a sign that read, "Have something to say? Leave it here. Someone is listening." She pulled out a blank card and wrote, "I don't know if I belong." She dropped it in, and just before she turned to leave, she noticed another card, taped gently to the side. "You already do. You're here. That means something." She smiled, and for the first time since arriving on campus, she believed it, because sometimes the smallest words are the ones that never leave us.